everyone, my name's Eden, and without further ado, let's get into the edit. So I always start by creating a composition with the frame settings that I like and the size of the composition that I like or I want the edit to be in. And then I start off with the audio, and I usually find one on Instagram or TikTok that I like, and then I download it and use that. But this time I didn't really find one that was up to my liking, so I created my own. And as you can see here, I just created a simple fade in and fade out. And afterwards I started to add the keyframes, so basically what beat comes when, because I like to work with that when doing a velocity, because when you work with Twixtor it always slows down, so it's kind of difficult to hear the beats in the exact moment, so I like to sort of prepare by doing that. Then the next thing I do is add the audio. So next thing I do is I'm adding my clips, and I just skip forward to the part of the video that I wanted to edit. This time I'm editing Gwen from her video of reacting to fan edits actually, and I thought that she would fit quite well with this song, so I decided to edit her. I usually don't really like to do velocity edits because I think they're like quite simple, and I prefer to do transition edits just because I think that I can be more creative, but I wanted to try out velocity edits again, and this time do it a bit differently, so to try out more effects and just do it differently and see what I can work with and what I can do different to just simply actually make a good velocity edit, because that is something that I struggle with, and that's why I prefer to do transition edits, because I think that it suits me more well and I just simply like to do it better. That I think is a very important part of editing. So if you really want to get that edit that you want, or the ability to edit greatly or as greatly as you can, it's just a matter of practice. And I like to experiment a lot with styles too, so I like to do maybe once in a while I like to do a soft edit, and then I'll do something more, I guess, badass again. And then I'll also experiment with like overlays and PNGs and stuff, and add a lot of color or do something black and white, and then also match it with the audio. In order to find your style, you need to experiment and try out different things, and even if you fail, that's alright. I mean, I don't think you can fail while editing, but if it feels like a failure to you, it's nothing bad. It can happen, you can learn from it, you can move on, you can improve, and then it's all good. And you will actually see later on in this edit that I was actually struggling quite a while sometime, and you will see me just replaying the edit like 100 times to know what I want to do or what I want differently, because sometimes something just seems off and I don't really know what it is, and then I need to rewatch it 1,000 times to know what it is. That can take a while sometime especially if you're trying things out. So you will see me playing around with effects and deleting keyframes, adding keyframes, changing values, deleting values. So it's all a matter of just trying out and seeing what you like. So now that I have added my clips and adjusted them to the beat that I want, I am resizing them and then pre-composing them so I can add the slow motion later on, well, the velocity / the Twixtor, as you will see in a second. If you want a more detailed tutorial of my Twixtor and velocity settings, let me know in the comments if you'd be interested, and if you have any other ideas, let me know. Ignore this part, I accidentally messed up my settings and had to adjust the screen again. So now that I've pre-composed all my clips, I'm adding my Twixtor settings as usual, and depending on the clip I like to change the values a bit, so maybe make it a bit faster, maybe a bit slower, or if there's no movement at all, I won't even add any keyframes and I'll just let the clip stay at one speed. So that is also just a matter of trying out and watching tutorials and see what you like. And what I think is very important in editing is that the edit sort of fits the person that you edit as well as the song. So in this case, I'm using Motivation by Kelly Rowland as my audio, and I think that matches Quen very well. And then I will also add a coloring that I think matches the scene in that sense very well. So that is something that I think is really important, that whenever you edit, that everything should match. So there should be a sort of union in the edit itself. The person should match the coloring should match the audio should match the edit itself. So if it's like transition or velocity, and then the effects should match. That way the edit will look very neat. It's also going to be more like aesthetically pleasing to the eye, and I think that's what sometimes makes an edit look a bit messy if that's not done, because there's no balance. There's too much of effect, as example, and then too little of the video itself or something, or there's too much of the audio and then in comparison little to no effects, as example, or little to no transitions. So here you can see me just trying out different options. I deleted all of my keyframes to see if that might look better, but then I decided to add them back because I thought it looked a bit boring. I thought it lacked movement, so that's why I added the keyframes back again. So I started editing in around 2017, I believe, and I started off with very simple apps like Cute Cut, I believe it was called. I have no idea what the app looks like now, but back then it was extremely simple, and you could only end like an in and an out transition, so there was no smoothness really in the edits. And then I started editing with a light motion, which was a great app, honestly, and I've also built a lot of content on my YouTube channel around that app, and I'm really grateful to have learned with that, because I think learning from such a, at that time, small app and not really known app, it was very difficult to also find tutorials and to really sort of use the effects and the options to the max. So now that I have added the velocity that I like, I am starting with some basic transitions. So what I'm doing here is a basic blur, which I'm going to change a lot more, as you will see. And then in around 2020, I believe, I switched to After Effects, and that was honestly a very difficult change, because I used to edit on my phone and suddenly it's on my laptop, and I have this big screen in front of me, and it's very intimidating. I have a lot of effects and possibilities to do, and that was very intimidating and difficult, to be honest. And I think a change like that in like your editing device is not something to be underestimated, because it is very difficult if you've been editing with something, with a specific app for a few years, and then suddenly changing to something, I mean, not only a different app, but also a different device. It's going to be quite challenging, and that's exactly what it was in the beginning. I enjoyed trying out After Effects, but it did frustrate me a lot as well, because there was so much. But that was also the really cool thing. After I kind of got into it, I was able to experiment a lot, and I feel like through After Effects I was really genuinely able to sort of edit in my like full capacity, and actually doing all the ideas that I had, and also the bit more advanced and complicated ideas. I'm very happy that After Effects gave me that possibility in that sense. And I know for a fact that a lot of people are intimidated by After Effects, and I will agree, it looks complicated in the very first minutes or hours, even days, but as soon as you get used to it, it's a great feeling, honestly. So don't hold yourself back just because you're underestimated. Even if something like After Effects intimidates you, still try it out, find it out. It's going to take time, but I believe it's going to be very worth it in the end as well. So after adding my blurs for the transition, I added a glow effect to some of the clips, and what I like to do with these glow effects basically is that I like to match them to the beat. So you will see in the end, when I show the final product, that whenever the snare comes on in the beats, there's a glow, and then whenever the kick comes from the beats, there will be a small twitch shake. I will add that later on. So that's something I really like to do, to actually match the effects to the audio, and I think that adds a lot more dimension into it rather than just copy pasting every effect to every clip so it looks the same basically if you put it next to each other. Now in this part I've had the biggest struggle in a long time with a warp, because I did not really find a setting that I liked, and then I added it, and then I deleted it, and then I added it again, and in the end I did find something that I liked, but that was very difficult because there are so many options to do it, and I was trying out different things and different speeds, different keyframes, different values, and sometimes it just doesn't work, and that's why I got really frustrated and I had to take a break at this point because I was getting a bit overwhelmed. And whenever you feel like that, it's better to just take a break, don't think about the edit for a few minutes, do something else, get a drink or something, and then come back to it or continue the next day maybe, and it's going to be a lot easier like that instead of just forcing yourself to edit. Because editing for me it's my passion, it's my hobby, it's a way to express my creativity and be myself in that sense. I feel like I show myself through the edits in some sense, and whenever you feel like you have to edit, you should rather stop, I believe, because editing for fun shouldn't feel forced. And that's also something that I feel very bad about when I see editors like on Instagram as example saying that they hate their edits. That's not something that I can understand, not in the sense that I think my edits are perfect, but in the sense that you should be proud of what you created, even if it's not at your maximum capacity of editing or your maximum ability. It's still something that you created from scratch that a lot of people are not able to do. And you should still be proud of that regardless, because you've invested hours into this, maybe even days, and you've invested a lot of thinking, a lot of creative thinking, maybe even hours for watching tutorials as example and trying some things out. So you should still be proud of that because it's something that you've created, and well, to be specific, only you created. So this is a creation entirely made by yourself, and I think that you shouldn't beat yourself up for it just because it's not perfect once. That's something completely normal. Not every edit is going to be great. I mean, I've seen some of my old Velocity edits as example, and at the time I thought they were okay, and now looking back, I definitely see that they were quite boring, and now I think I've did something better. But I do believe it's not up to my full editing capacity because I've did a lot more impressive edits, I would say, and that doesn't mean that I will say that it's a bad edit, because the edit was meant as a practice, and I think that I learned a lot while doing this edit, so it's a win for me regardless. So at this point I had taken a break, and as you can see I'm trying the wave warp out again, and I've also watched some tutorials, and as you can see I won't like it, and then I will change it again, and then I won't like it again, then I'll change it again, and that's completely fine. And also on the topic of tutorials, it's completely fine to ask for help, look for tutorials, because it's a pretty easy way to learn. And I'm also really happy sometimes that people ask me, oh well, how did you do this in your edit, how did you do that? And I'm very happy to explain it to them because I want to share my knowledge as well, and that's exactly the reason why I am making these videos, because I want to help people and show them that they are perfectly capable of doing things in their edits just like other people. So watching tutorials isn't something that you should be ashamed of, and I've seen a lot of people sort of get really frustrated because they don't want to ask for help, and then they sort of lose their minds because they're stuck at one point while editing, and I don't think you should do it that way. It's completely fine to ask for help, and it also makes it quite easy sometimes, because if you find an effect that you really like, you can sort of keep those values in your mind, and then you can use it like that every time, and that's going to make editing a lot easier. I think the most beautiful thing about editing is that you're completely free and able to do it as you like. So there aren't any regulations or something similar to that you need to fulfill in order to make, in quotation marks, a good edit. You can just do it as you like. And I think that's also something really interesting to see when watching other edits. So I have a lot of mutuals who have very different editing styles to mine. And whenever I look at their edits, I think like, wow, like that's so interesting, because I would have never had the idea to do it that way, but the way you did it is absolutely phenomenal. And then maybe with one edit I will try to do that, and I will realize that it's not really my thing, and I'll rather watch it than do it, and then I'll leave it, and then that's that with that edit. And I think that's fine too. You can try things out, maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't like it, but it's an experience anyway, and it's a process where you learn, and that's exactly what matters with editing, I believe. And that's also something that brings you forward in your editing career. And I think that if you've been sort of stuck for a while and you think, oh well, my edits are looking the same, there's not really any improvement or any changing, maybe it's time to just try out something else, something that you might not be comfortable with. Do something the exact opposite of your editing style. And that is also something that I've had to do to actually improve. And it's not comfortable, of course it's not comfortable, that's why you usually stick with a style that matches you and that you like and feel comfortable with. But it can actually bring you forward in your editing journey really, really much. So here you can see next to my blurs and the glow and the warp, I'm adding some halftone to create a change in the images, because I think that that's fitting at that point. And I'm adding my watermark as well. Something that I struggle with when making velocity edits is that motion, sort of, that good velocity usually have. And that's something that I've tried to recreate by adding different shakes and sometimes even a slight zoom in or something, because I simply don't know how to do it. And I always see it in very good velocity edits. They're always extremely smooth, and they just look so put together, and it's a pleasure watching them, honestly. So that's what I'm sort of trying to recreate, to have that momentum, especially with these longer clips that I have, like the one that I'm editing now. I'm adding an effect that I only use in this and another clip that's sort of the same, to give off the same feeling. So it's difficult, and that's something that I'm not afraid to admit, because it's something that I need to learn. So at this point in the edit, I'm adding some shakes. I'm adding a twitch shake, the one that I've already mentioned, that is only set at specific beats. And as you can see, I'm just rewatching the same clips or the entire edit over and over and over again to see if I like it, to see if I want to change any values. So at this point of the edit, I am making some final adjustments to really level those details out that I want to look good in an edit. And as you can see, I'm rewatching it a bunch of times to see if I find something that I may not like. If you're still watching the video, thank you so much for watching. I deeply appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy listening to this. And maybe it helped you even a bit. I would be very glad if it helped you in some ways. And if it didn't, that's fine too. So right now I'm adding the intro. Maybe you've noticed, but I have cut that clip from the beginning and I've just kept it somewhere there, basically at the beginning, because I was quite unsure if I wanted to add it. But then I thought that the intro was too long, so I did end up deciding to add it. And then, as you can see, I'm adding a little zoom, I'm adding some effects on it, a TV damage as example, and some other things to sort of keep that motion that I want throughout the whole edit. Now comes one of my favorite parts while editing, to add the panning on, or sort of over the entire edit in the end. I think that panning adds a lot of smoothness in the entire edit, and it can make it look a bit more flowy and smooth and neat. And I think that it actually improves an edit. I mean, sometimes of course it can look a bit too much, but then again it's just a matter of readjusting the values and match it to the edit. If you have any specific video suggestions or wishes for certain transitions, effects, even if it's some that I used in this edit, please let me know in the comments. I will gladly make a tutorial about it. So now comes my probably favorite part of editing, which is the coloring, and I feel like that adds that last missing detail in an edit. And what I do is I use magic bullet looks, short for MBL, and I have a lot of colorings that I've had for years, even from old tutorials from 2018 and 19. And what I do now is I see which one I like the most, and then I modify it to match the edit, and that's what I did now. I chose one, and then I deleted some effects, I added some effects, I've changed some values so that it really matches the picture, and so that I can also get the quality that I like. Because what's important for me in edits is that I have that really sharp look, because that's something I personally really like. And at this point of the edit, I was so happy with how it looked at the end that I just rewatched it like 10 times, because I really liked what I did. And also I was really proud of the things I tried out. Even if the effects itself were rather simple, I really liked how it looked all in all together in the end. And as already said, even if the edit is not at your maximum editing ability, it's still something that you created and you should be proud of, in my opinion. And that's exactly what I try to do with every edit, because I think that I try something out every time I edit. So I've used effects now in an order which I haven't used before, and I really liked how it turned out, and I was really proud of that. And I'm going to be very excited also showing this to my mutuals and posting it and seeing how people will react. And now the final step, I'm just exporting the edit, and then it's basically ready to go, and I can post it afterwards.
Bow! That's when the edit would start. Bow!